Get Popeye's Scary Good Freddy Fazbear Box with garlic palm tenders and cheesy bites with marinara sauce. Or try the deluxe box with the Cupcake Cup and a 20-ounce drink and see Five Nights at Freddy's 2, only in theaters. Love that chicken from Popeyes. Limited time at participating U.S. restaurants.
You're hitting the road to talk about the economy. I wonder, sir, what grade would you give your economy right now?
Before I answer that, let me just tell you something. I've watched stupid people like Marjorie Trader Green, or some people call her Taylor Green, some people call her Taylor Brown, because green sometimes turns to brown, which isn't nice. So when, people with low IQs like Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's a low IQ person. But she was a loyal person until I wasn't able to answer her phone calls because I'm just too busy to answer people's phone calls. You can't call me 3 times a day.
But I do want to talk about the economy, sir, here at home. And I wonder what grade you would give
A+.
your economy. A+.
Yeah, A++++++.
Welcome to Quiet Riot, the politics podcast that's more mince pies than minced words. I'm Andreou.
Think of us as your morning after remedy to the work Christmas do. Big glass of water, a painkiller, greasy fry-up, all here to ease your anxiety, clear your head and sweep away the cobwebs from everything in the news.
So take your party shoes off, pop your comfy slippers on, and let's kick off another Quiet Riot. Hello, I'm Alex, a good cook, a bad socialist, and mediocre at logging into the studio Wi-Fi.
And I'm Naomi, a good liberal, bad dancer, and pretty average singer.
And logged into every Wi-Fi in WC1, I would say. On today's show, with David Lammy being pushed on the customs union, the Lib Dems agitating for it in the Commons, Starmer calling for changes to the ECHR, and Naomi launching a big policy recommendation on youth mobility, we're looking hard at all things UK-EU reset, especially in the context of that Trump strategy document and what it means for our continent.
And we're going to be looking at the social media ban for young people introduced in Australia, where you now have to be 16 to access sites like Instagram and TikTok. Is that the future? Should we be doing it here? Will it really make any difference at keeping our young people safe?
To help us, we are delighted to be joined by a good friend of the show, Henry Morris. Welcome, Henry. Croeso.
Shwmae ti'n iawn, diolch am cael fi dod.
Oh, you're getting better and better, aren't you?
Thank you for having me back. There's been a lot of obstacles set in my way to get here.
Well, indeed, Henry, you're battening down the hatches and helping with the sandbagging operation that's been caused as a result of the Storm Bram hitting your area. How are the flood defences holding up in your neck of North Wales?
The flood defences are holding up on my house, but sadly the water has decided to come up through the floor. I watched vexed as the flood defences in the doors and the windows held the river outside the house, but the water table just rose up like a bath. And so we copped it. We got a lot of water in the house.
I'm so sorry. Have you been able to lighten your mood from all of the awfulness of being literally, in the middle of climate chaos with a bit of Welsh language entertainment, I hear?
Well, my daughter has just been in the Ysgol Bro Piselli production of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, which is basically
brilliant.
It's amazing. It involved the whole school from like 5 to 18. It was fully in Welsh. When I asked Gwen, is it all in Welsh, Gwen, she said, yes, Dad, apart from the English words, chitty, chitty, bang, bang. The school have basically, fair play to them, just given up, I think, not done any lessons for 4 weeks and just done pure chitty, chitty, bang, bang rehearsals. And it paid off. It was unbelievably good. Everyone in Crimich has been wandering around whistling Toot Sweets and could weigh 3 odd.
That
amazing.
Is brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
It.
And the best learning they will do this year, I think. No, seriously. I mean, being in rehearsal for a play, you learn stuff quickly.
It's amazing. Watching her grow, I won't lie, was tears in the eyes when they come out and start doing all these dance moves to Posh in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. It was really good, really special.
Quiet Riot.
National security strategy documents are annually produced by the White House and usually garner about as much attention as most policy documents. Trump's 2025 national security strategy, and in particular what it says about Europe, is the exception. It isn't a subtle shift. The document describes Europe not as long-standing, trusted, and indispensable partner, but as a continent in decline, plagued by immigration, demographic change, what it calls a loss of national identity and cohesion, and creeping civilizational erosion. To most of Europe, it feels deeply insulting, criticism not just of policy, but of values. As former State Department and NATO staffer Dr. Tara said to Arthur Snell on our sister podcast Behind the Lines, it is a naked attack on Europe for letting itself become too brown.
If you take a look at Paris, it's a much different place. I loved Paris. It's a much different place than it was. If you take a look at London, you have a mayor named Khan. He's a horrible mayor. He's an incompetent mayor, but he's a horrible, vicious, disgusting mayor. I think he's done a terrible job. London's a different place. I love London. I love London. And I hate to see it happen. You know, my roots are in Europe, as you know.
Right.
And I hate to see that happen. This is one of the great places in the world, and they're allowing people just to come in and unchecked, unvetted.
So how involved are you going to get? I mean, could we see you getting involved in European
I want to run the
for
United
example?
States. I don't want to run Europe. I'm involved in Europe very much. Europe is being destroyed.
Leaders across the continent are already recoiling, warning that this marks a fundamental transformation of the transatlantic relationship. Geopolitically speaking, this is, of course, another bonanza for Vladimir Putin and his allies. A divided, insecure Europe forced into defensive self-reliance, or worse, fracturing, weakens collective Western resistance to Russian aggression and undercuts unified support for Ukraine. Can Europe rally, or will it splinter under pressure from Washington and an opportunistic Kremlin? Naomi, how have EU leaders reacted in general?
Well, we've had a pretty strident response from Antonio Costa, who's the president of the European Council. And I remember the UK is still part of that grouping. And he said that the idea of the US, quote, cultivating resistance inside Europe is effectively backing nationalist far-right parties and interfering in our European politics, and is a complete red line. And as you say, a challenge not just to policy alignment, but to the very fabric of European democracy, autonomy, and dignity. Over in Germany, Chancellor Merz has been much more tempered. He responded by saying the strategy underlines that Europe needs to become much more independent from the US when it comes to security. No shit, Merz. And he pushed back on the notion that our democracy needs saving by outsiders. And he says that Europe and Germany in particular can uphold democratic values of our own. Of course, the strategy was very, very pointed and followed up with an interview that Trump did where he savaged Sadiq Khan again. And I guess that our European leaders are going to be very concerned about what the delayed US national defense strategy is now going to say, given that the security strategy will definitely point towards them withdrawing support in Europe, and obviously comes hot on the heels of his very lukewarm commitment to NATO. What is striking, of course, is that UK government didn't say anything for a long time. Starmer did get pressed on it in PMQs on Wednesday, and then there was a response in defense of Sadiq Khan, but, just quite he's a good guy, he's our friend, and we support him. So European leaders have been at best a bit mealy-mouthed and at worst quite silent on it at the time of recording.
Arthur made a very interesting point in his podcast and also his Substack, where he said that people monitor statements hoping for strident stuff. But actually, if you look at the action, there's quite a lot to take heart from, in that Europe has actually completely resisted pressure for a year from the US to give up its defense of Ukraine and agree to some peace plan. And actually, there's quiet resilience to just saying, nope, we're not going to give up on Ukraine. And they've kept at it.
Yeah, I mean, they have. I remain, as you know, very disappointed about the EU and UK not managing to reach an agreement on the UK's access to the SAFE Fund. I think we should remember that the SAFE Fund is only about 20% of EU defence procurement over the next 4 or 5 years, so it isn't the whole story. And I suppose the real strategic issue is whether Europe can maintain a defence industrial base capable of providing essential capabilities and do so via collaboration across Europe and close allies, Canada, Japan, South Korea, etc., not by trying to produce everything within the bloc. The need to specialise based on comparative advantage rather than recreating Chinese-style models of onshoring everything should offer the UK opportunities that exist within SAFE, but also within related programmes, rather than standing aside. So, yes, you're right. We haven't given up on Ukraine, nor should we, because it is our war. And I hope that behind the scenes, this constant signalling from Trump that he is not a reliable ally anymore, in fact, that America isn't, will give pause to thought for those that have been less willing to consider doing more with the UK in defence.
I just thought it was an interesting thought, and one that I hadn't had myself, that in the middle of all this, if you look at the actual direction of travel, quite the opposite from backtracking, Europe has been moving frustratingly slowly, but in the right direction, and the opposite direction to the one that the White House wants it to move.
And this is my pitch to the EU. While very steady, slow progress in the right direction is frustrating, if the UK ends up after the next general election with a Putin-curious prime minister, then incremental change in the other direction will feel extremely painful and quick.
Henry, I remember us chatting last time. It was certainly after that awful meeting in the Oval Office between Trump and Zelensky. But I think it was also after the speech J.D. Vance gave in Munich, where he accused Europe of betraying democracy and free speech and truly bizarre stuff. And I remember all of us kind of struggling at the time with whether this was freelancing going a little bit haywire, or whether this did represent policy. I mean, this document puts that to bed, doesn't it?
The interesting thing about this document is that it's uncharacteristically coherent from a very incoherent president. Vance and Pete Hegseth said it was the US no longer wanted to be distracted by democracy building, interventionism and regime change, which I feel is a rich irony considering they're saying they're defending European democracy and intervening in it by telling us what to do. And ideally hoping for regime change with more sympathetic leaders in Europe.
Yeah, but you can agree that it's not democracy building intervention, it's sort of democracy destroying intervention.
Of course. But I'm just enjoying the irony of them pretending they're, doing exactly what they're saying they don't want to do, just on their terms.
Yeah,
it's wild, isn't it? The racist element, the openly racist element of it is despicable. It fascinates me how we'll react to it. In contrast to Arthur Snell saying people are looking for someone to say something strident, I do hope people will object in the strongest possible terms to what is fundamentally a racist document.
Quiet Riot.
This is Jason Momoa, and I'll be your finance professor today. Welcome to Banking Smarter 101 with Chime. Bam! First lesson, sign up for Chime and set up direct deposit. You'll be joining millions of members banking fee-free. Second lesson, get cash back on eligible purchases while building credit and a higher APY on your savings. That's how you bank smarter this season. Fa-la-la-la-la, class dismissed. Join Chime today.
Chime is a financial technology company, not a bank. Banking services and a secure Chime Visa credit card provided by the Bancorp Bank N.A. or Stride Bank N.A. Members FDIC. Optional services and products may have fees or charges. Details at chime.com/fees-info. With a qualifying direct deposit, earn 1.5% cash back on eligible secure Chime Visa credit card purchases. On-time payment history may have a positive impact on your credit score. Results may vary. APY means annual percentage yield. Learn about credit building and more at chime.com.
Quiet Riot.
Did you racially abuse fellow pupils when you were at school?
No, this is 49 years ago, by the way. 49 years ago. Have I ever tried to take it out on any individual on the basis of where they're from? No.
At school, categorically on the record, you did not racially abuse fellow pupils?
I would never, ever do it in a hurtful or insulting way.
That's not quite the same as not doing it.
It's 49 years ago. Can I remember everything that happened at school? No, I can't. Have I ever been part of an extremist organisation or engaged in direct, unpleasant personal abuse, genuine abuse, on that basis? No.
You're not quite, that's very, very caveated. You're not quite ruling this out. The question is, did you ever racially abuse fellow pupils in school.
No.
You've caveated
Not
it with a hurtful way.
Not with intent.
What do you mean not with intent? I don't understand what you mean by not with intent. What does that mean?
You wouldn't do.
But what does that mean?
I have never directly really tried to go and hurt anybody.
Do you think it legitimizes racism here? Because this is also a period where we have elected MPs saying that I don't like seeing brown faces on TV, and all the stories about Farage's past, and it seems to be shifting sort of what's acceptable.
It all contributes, doesn't it? It's all, every time someone says something, someone who might have just heard a clip on Facebook or scroll past it somewhere, who might have been sympathetic to those ideas, suddenly feels emboldened and backed up by someone in a position of authority saying a similar thing. It's a snowball effect. Yeah, the Overton window is only going in that direction as far as I can see.
Naomi, I think some of the political reaction has been justifiably, we've been saying this for a very long time, that this is a time to hug our European allies closer because of what's going on. But some of it has veered now onto, I guess, the slightly more technical aspects of that, of saying, let's rejoin the customs union. Is that the right reaction? I mean, obviously, I would love us to rejoin the customs union. I would love us to hug our European allies more closely, all of that. But are they related? Are they connected? Is rejoining the customs union a true response to what America seemingly is trying to do?
Well, let's just remember that bar David Lammy's slip up, I think it probably was, on the Newsagents podcast, you haven't got people in government advocating for it, and you don't have people in the EU Commission advocating for it either. The Lib Dems did a 10-minute rule bill on it this week, and actually it was a score draw, with Caroline Noakes as chair getting the casting vote, and it was 100-100, and you did have not an insignificant number of Labour MPs voting with the Lib Dems on it. Interestingly, they are all from, pretty much all from the left of the party. To the extent to which they actually believe in it or saw it as a possible route to cause trouble for the government, I don't know. But when we look at what a customs union really means, and I do think that it is worth unpacking it a bit, a customs union means sharing a common external tariff and then removing tariffs between members so that goods can move without having to prove origin. Now, this does not mean that they move without friction. So for the UK, the real benefit of joining the customs union or having a customs arrangement with the EU is just that. It removes the need to comply with the rules of origin under the trade and cooperation agreement, the Brexit deal. And those rules do impose costs, about 2 to 8% of a product's value. So it would cut some friction, but essentially that's it. It wouldn't remove border formalities like export and import declarations, VAT, excise procedures, safety and security checks, other regulatory inspections, and it wouldn't stop the EU using trade defence measures, as we've seen they've done with their customs union with Turkey. And so joining would mean aligning the UK's external tariffs with the EU, which could complicate some of the trade deals that we've signed since we left. But we wouldn't have to match the EU in every detail. But if you want the really deeper benefits that get implied by some people making this case, then actually you've got to go well beyond a customs union.
Because it's about alignment of the rules internally.
Exactly, about regulatory alignment, not just shared tariffs. And so that's what we at Best of Britain are pushing for. That's what a lot of what was mentioned at the reset in May between von der Leyen and Starmer was about. Initially with agricultural and food products and emissions trading, and then hopefully into other areas in the future.
It feels to me like the European response should be on the topic on which it's being attacked, which is values, identity. Yeah. And so to respond by saying we'll do a bit more trade with each other, it just rankled a little bit for me.
I am comforted by the fact that before we came on to record this show, the big three leaders in Europe, Starmer, Merz and Macron, had just done a call with Trump. They are trying to act in unison. Hopefully we'll get a readout of that later. But do I think that there is a link between the shift on that particular issue of customs union and the EU and UK aligning more in defence of attacks from West and East? No. But are they nonetheless working together in a more collaborative way? I think so.
Henry, we were just talking about you going to your kids' big Christmas show. You interact with a lot of people, other parents, in a rural area in Wales, a primarily rural area in Wales. I just wondered, does this geopolitical stuff penetrate at all? Like, are people talking about it, or is it not filtering through?
Not remotely. Nobody ever talks about stuff like this. People talk about fuel prices. They talk about what's fed to them on Facebook. They talk about immigration, and they notice how little money they've got. It's quite a poor rural area. But customs unions and things like this, everyone might have a sentence or so that they might have to say if someone mentions Europe, something, because people don't have time to invest in getting to understand all these things unless they're very interested in it, which most people around here aren't. What's really instructive to me is, you said it's a rural area. It's a rural area in many ways, not least in which nobody here has a website and everything is done on Facebook. And I'm constantly encountering people who are talking Facebook-led politics, the nonsense that the algorithm is feeding us, which plays into the hands of populists. And that's most people's exposure to politics now.
And Trump, he must come up because he's eye-catching, I guess.
I know a few idiots who like him because they've got some crypto stashed away. One of my neighbours likes him because he does a funny dance. I think low information voters is how I might describe their sort of understanding of geopolitical situation. It's either things that directly impact them or it's something they've seen on a 15-second video.
Naomi, tourists, including from the UK, could be asked to provide up to a 5-year social media history now on entering the US. We can forget it. But also, slightly more disturbingly, a cable went out to US consulates ordering officers to review resumes and LinkedIn profiles for all H-1B applicants. That's the visa that basically allows you to temporarily hire someone from anywhere in the world if they have something unique to offer. The visa that, authors get when they go on a book tour, or, actors get when they film something in Hollywood, that kind of thing. It's instructing people to look into and exclude those who have worked in activities such as, and I quote, misinformation, disinformation, content moderation, fact-checking, compliance, and online safety. And that includes family members traveling with them. So effectively, the US is trying to exclude fact-checkers, like physically from its territory. What the fuck is that about?
Well, I think it helps us understand why Meta got rid of fact-checking on Instagram and Facebook this year. They knew this was coming. And they need to be able to use the H-1B visa. And we saw Elon Musk actually break ranks with Trump on the restriction on that kind of visa earlier this year as well, saying, tech and Tesla, we rely on this kind of talent mobility in our businesses, and it's wrong to try and cut it off. It is the upside down world in which we're now living. This is the Gilead reality of Trump 2.0. He does not want scrutiny.
There's an irony here, isn't there, that the first plank of this policy document that we started talking about was about dismantling regulatory frameworks, especially digital censorship. Yet they're proactively searching people's social media accounts in order to obstruct them.
Quiet Riot.
John Legend, Sheryl Crow, Elvis Costello, and Alanis Morissette star in the MGM Plus original series, Words and Music. Iconic artists share intimate performances and the stories behind the songs. New episodes Sundays on MGM Plus.
Quiet Riot.
If we accept the premise that the response that's required is more cultural, which feels right to me, all of the trade stuff is important and should be advancing on a parallel track. But the response, this hugging more closely of European allies, should be about more than we can make profit together, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Best for Britain has launched a major intervention this week on youth mobility.
Yeah.
Can you tell listeners about it?
One of the big asks of the EU from the UK in this reset, which is set to benefit the UK much more so economically, is, okay, well, if you want to have more regulatory alignment with us and you want frictionless trade on certain products and services, then we would really quite like a visa scheme that would allow young people to get the wonderful cultural exchange experiences of being able to study, work, live in the UK for a period of time. Initially, UK government was a little bit reluctant on this because they have simultaneously said we want to lower net migration, and also we would quite like a closer relationship with Europe. So it was a bit of a tricky situation for them. But over time, they've really got the memo on it, and we even had people like Rachel Reeves saying we need to have an ambitious youth mobility scheme with the EU just a couple of months ago before the budget. So the mood music within UK government had changed quite a lot and was beginning to get closer to where the EU's position was. The difficulty for the EU was that they did all of the politics of talking up an UK youth mobility scheme without really thinking about the mechanism of it. Because in the EU, your residency and therefore visa requirements are pegged to a member state. They're not done corporately by some passport office in Brussels on behalf of all its member states. So the mechanism for actually doing it hadn't really been thought through. So at Best Written, through what we call the UK Trade and Business Commission, which is a cross-party, cross-industry group, we really put our heads to this because we believe that we can unlock this youth mobility sort of sticking point and find a solution for it to drive it forward, then all of the other things can flow and all of the other kind of collaboration and close alignment can begin to happen.
And what is the solution?
So what we've come up with is a capped, time-limited scheme. The EU have always said they want uncapped, but because of migration pressures in the UK, politically, that was just never going to wash through the Home Office. So we analysed all of the other youth mobility schemes that the UK has. It has 13 of them, Canada, New Zealand, Japan, all sorts of places. And we tracked the data, the most recent available data, for how many of those young people come here and how many of our young people go to those countries. And it results in net emigration of 44,000 people. So many more Brits are taking it up and going than young people from those countries are coming here, which gives you a 44,000 headroom to say to the EU, okay, well, let's do a deal at 44,000 young people from Britain going there, 44,000 young Europeans coming here. That would make it the largest scheme of any that the UK has and bigger than most of the ones EU member states have with other third-party countries as well. And that will then have absolutely no impact on migration figures and the Home Office doesn't need to worry about it.
So even if not a single British person decided to take up the scheme and the full amount of European young people decided to take up the scheme, you'd still end up with a net zero with the other mobility schemes.
Exactly that.
Clever.
And we see it as a floor, not a ceiling. And we're saying that there should be a review mechanism baked in so that every year you can look at the numbers and we would only expect the numbers to go north. We're saying it should be a 2-year scheme with a possible 1-year extension, so 2+1. And when it comes to the other big ask from Europe, which is that they would really like anyone coming on a youth mobility scheme to be offered domestic university tuition fees, we're saying no. We're saying to UK government and the EU, at the moment, that is just not tenable. 45% of the UK's higher education institutions could be in deficit next year, according to a report from the Office of Students. The UK government has said domestic UK tuition fees can rise with inflation. We're still not sure what that is going to do for the long-term sustainability of universities in the UK. So we're saying, no, do you know what, Europeans? Don't use your one-in-a-lifetime application for a youth mobility scheme on your degree, because you can use a student route for that on a student visa. And then after that, if you want to stay, you can apply for the youth mobility visa. And then in the end, you could end up staying for much longer than 2 years. You could be here for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 even, depending on the length of your student visa. So we think that this is quite an elegant way through the middle, as we say, a floor, not a ceiling. And it's been roundly welcomed by industry, travel industry, hospitality industry, and of course also the university sector and Universities UK, but also the Migration Advisory Committee. Professor Brian Bell, who heads that up, has spoken in favour of our solution. And so we've launched it today. We're hoping that Mara Shefkovic and Nick Thomas-Simmons can use it as a blueprint for how they might be able to get this thing over the line. And before everybody moans about, hey, but what about me? I'm over 30. Just remember that you would have to be knocking 30 now to have been one of the youngest people who actually voted in the referendum in 2016.
Yeah, also pretty much your life is over, so just get used to that. Do you know what I mean?
You can't go on a 18 to 30s holiday anymore. You can't go on a young people's
Your
mobility.
best days are behind you. We're very sorry. Staying within the cultural sphere, Henry, you seem like quite a natural person to ask about what's going on with Eurovision.
You couldn't be more wrong. I have no idea what's going on at Eurovision.
There's apparently a Eurovision crisis. Does anyone know about it? I keep seeing it pop up, but I haven't read up on it.
Okay, well, basically what's happened is that the organisation that runs Eurovision have said that they're not going to put it to a vote of all of the participant countries as to whether or not Israel should be allowed to participate.
Oh, I see.
And so in reaction to that, so it's the EBU, the European Broadcasting Union, who run the contest. They're not going to hold this vote. And instead are just going to say that Israel will remain eligible to compete in Vienna next year. And that has prompted several countries to pull out. Ireland, Spain, Netherlands, and Slovenia have now all announced that they're not going to compete because their values can't be reconciled with the contest while Israel remains included because of humanitarian concerns, etc. And of course, when Russia has been ousted, Germany have said that they would withdraw if Israel was excluded. So you've got Germany, the UK, Nordic broadcasters like Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, Austria, and France publicly supporting letting Israel participate, and Ireland, Spain, Netherlands, Slovenia saying, "Nah, we're out. Thank you very much." So it's all turned into even more drama than the weirdly political event that Eurovision is anyway.
Henry, Trump has excellent relations with people like Erdogan in Turkey and a lot of Middle Eastern autocrats. He doesn't seem particularly bothered by brownness per se. The question seems to be more about the mixing of races. There's obviously a notional line in their head behind which brown people ought to stay and beyond which the continent ought to be white. Do we have any idea what that is? I mean, is it Greece? Is it Bulgaria? Is it...
Oh, I see.
Do you see what I mean?
I guess staying within your country's borders, but then that implies a specific colour for each country, doesn't it? Which
exactly.
Is arrant nonsense. The history of humanity is about immigration and people moving around, and has always changed and will always change. So it's ultimately a fool's errand to think that you can try and stop that from ever happening. It's a fascinating question about the ideological bedmates like Erdogan. It's an unanswerable question because it's inherently underpinned by nonsense.
You kind of answered it, though, interestingly, because you think it's more about ethno-nationalism. It's about everyone staying within their borders.
Unless you're Greenland, and then you have to let America into them.
Yeah, don't remind him about Greenland. He seems to have forgotten about it briefly. No, seriously, though. They must be thinking, oh, shit, when is he going to turn to us again? Naomi, you have quite a Christmassy, I think, call to action for us, don't you?
I do. I thought I'd give a lovely Christmassy call to action that's not really related to anything we've just been discussing at all. I would like our listeners to buy a gift for a child who won't get one. Somebody I know called Steph works at an amazingly diverse inner city community school in East Manchester, and it's in the shadow of the Etihad Stadium, but the poverty of their children is real. Many of their families are defined as working poor, so 60% of the children entitled to free school meals, and that means that their home has an income of less than £16,000 per year. The school serves children and young people who live in temporary accommodation, have parents or carers with addiction issues, long-term disability, mental health, and they serve children and young people who have been displaced by war. Many parents that the school serves therefore do struggle to provide any kind of Christmas gift for their children for a myriad of very, very sad reasons, none of which are the fault of the children and young people. And so Steph came up with a really lovely idea to fill the gap, because kindness matters and compassion is a protective factor for children and young people experiencing adversity. And so she set up an Amazon wish list. There is a range of things on there you can buy, from £5 up to about 20 quid. and it'll get posted directly to the school, and then they can wrap them up and allocate them to different children depending on their age. There's things in there for children with autism. There's things to help keep them warm, just things to play with and make them feel that they're seen and that they're cared and that they are valued members of our society. So we're going to leave a link in the show notes, and if you can, please, please, please go and buy them a gift so that these children don't go without this Christmas.
Oh, lovely.
On it.
Quiet Riot.
Say hello to the all-new Alexa Plus and see how Alexa can do so much more for you. Need tickets to see your favorite artist? Craving your comfort restaurant? Just sit back, relax, and talk naturally. Alexa's on it. It learns your style, anticipates what's next, and makes it happen across Echo, Fire TV, and more. Learn more at amazon.com/new Alexa.
Quiet Riot.
And now it's time to dust off the snowflakes, put down the avocado toast, and find out what's ruffling the right's feathers this week. It's time for Wokie Dokie.
Wokie Dokie.
Take it away, Alex.
I'm very sorry to disappoint a lot of listeners who have sent us the story about Marco Rubio switching departments to Times Roman because apparently Calibri is woke as a font. You couldn't make it up. I have opted for a more seasonal one, I'm afraid. It won out purely for those reasons. So Susan Hall, former Conservative candidate for London Mayor, has posted a photo of some Morrison's mini gingerbread people.
This is the same Susan Hall who went ballistic over the Tesco Christmas tree not being labelled so
Correct.
a Christmas tree. So she's moved from Tesco to so she's driving around the supermarkets.
She's now at the shouting at biscuits stage of her career. Look at this nonsense. Capitals, no! They are gingerbread men, many exclamation marks. Now, the reason I chose that, two reasons actually. First is that it is a heavily recycled bit of outrage. If you look, you will find pieces about this being outrageous from last year, the year before, all the way back to a big piece about Morrison's first introducing this in 2022 in the Mail. A gingerbread person, in capitals, the headline asks, Morrison's takes the biscuit for wokery. And in that piece, it will also tell you that even that is recycled from when the Scottish Parliament decided to do it in 2018. And even that was recycled from an earlier outrage at someone doing it in some other small artisan bakery a few years before that. So this is a perennial that seems to come up every year. But I thought it was interesting to pick it up this year for two reasons. First of all, because given the arguments going on about trans rights, I thought it was quite interesting that we keep being told that what makes a man and a woman is the penis and the vagina. And this biscuit plainly has neither. And so I think gingerbread person is the right way to describe it. I mean, I don't want genderless biscuits invading my spaces. I don't want some gingerbread person to be allowed to come and undress next to me at the gym. And so, Susan, make your mind up.
In fairness to her, in the guise of a biscuit, she's finally found a worthy adversary.
Yes. Yes, this is a battle of wits I'll be keen to watch. And then the second thing is that looking into the history of it was also quite funny because the first documented instances, actually the whole gingerbread shaped as a person thing is an invention of Elizabeth I, who instructed her cooks to make biscuits that were replicas of her Christmas guests, men and women, and contained elaborate decorations that represented them. And it was used as a diplomatic tool. It was basically the first instance, I guess, of a takeaway gift, of a grab bag. And I thought that was a rather sweet addendum to the story that drives home the point that they were never meant to be just men. So, yes, gingerbread biscuits are woke this week.
And also, they're recycling a story, right? They keep bringing it up in different guises in different years. But I thought recycling was
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you for everybody who sends us Wokie Dokies. You do it. We love it. Keep them coming in to quietriotpod@gmail.com.
Quiet Riot.
Enjoy the quiet. This was the summary of the sentiment expressed by Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese as he announced a total social media ban for anybody under 16.
From December 10, if you're under 16, you're no longer allowed to have a social media account. You'll know better than anyone what it's like growing up with algorithms, endless speeds, and the pressure that can come with that. Above all, make the most of the school holidays coming up rather than spending it scrolling on your phone. Start a new sport, learn a new instrument, or read that book that has been sitting there on your shelf for some time. And importantly, spend quality time with your friends and your family, face to face.
The world watches with interest because there has been a growing awareness for a while that algorithms are getting to shape our children psychologically, becoming unchecked, unwanted surrogates. And if you look at any mental health data, not for the better. But is a ban the right way to go? Is it fair? Will it work? Can it work? And is throwing 16-year-olds of the future into an unfamiliar toxic environment any better than throwing them in at age 10, 12 or 13? Henry, you've been watching, I think, with some interest all of this. Both as a devoted social media yourself and a father of young children, what's the reaction been like?
Well, we've known for a long time that social media is very bad for us. Study after study after study tells us that it gives us unrealistic body image ideals, for dopamine addiction from the endless scrolling, disrupts your sleep and your emotional regulation. And underpinning it all is the fact that tech companies are profiting from keeping you engaged. I don't think there's any argument. No psychologist would say it's good for you. The cons far outweigh the benefits. And that's as someone who's sort of managed to shift career via social media. And I'm sure you guys appreciate its pitfalls as well. You can be tweeting or blue skying and looking for that tweet with the big hit that gives you a big nice response because lots of people are interacting with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's addictive. You realize you're spending a lot of time in front of your screen. And I know as a dad, I'm stood in front of my daughter a lot of the time on my phone, and she's just seeing me and her mum scrolling lots and doing things, doing work, checking emails on there. And so this example that she's getting, if that's just what people do, she's constantly asking to use my phone. And I've friends with older children, and everyone's got a horror story about something their child has encountered on social media or done on social media, which, children 10 years ago, 20 years ago weren't experiencing. I'm personally delighted I grew up in a non-social media age.
Yeah,
I think everyone from a particular age upwards would agree with that sentiment. I don't know anyone that would say, oh gosh, I wish there was social media around when I was 13.
Exactly. Caitlin Moran wrote an interesting column about it a few weeks ago, just saying people have recognised that it's bad for us. And anecdotally, from her perspective, she sees people stepping away from it. I think all of us would, agree that was the case. And the children who are currently using it, the 16-year-olds in Australia who are about to have it taken away, or the 15-year-olds, well, they might object to that because, like any addiction, it's about that dopamine hit, that fix. Going cold turkey on that is going to be hard. The benefits far outweigh the cons.
Well, let's have a little listen to some of the teenagers affected.
What just happened, Grace?
I just got banned off Instagram.
On Instagram, the second I log in, it just comes up with this page. I can't access anything whatsoever. Now, to go onto my other account that is 16 and over, or 16 years old, it's absolutely normal.
Got a message this morning. If you're 16 or older, verify your age to unlock your account. I did try, and I tried to sign up, but it says, sorry, it looks like you're not eligible for Snapchat.
I'm going into Snapchat. They emailed me, but I didn't open their emails, and I can just go straight on.
This morning, I went to use TikTok, and I have 3 accounts. 2 of them have my real age, and they pretty much showed something like this. Like, they pretty much just got deleted.
Okay, I'm opening YouTube. I can still see everything and I'm still logged in. Going to Instagram, it tells me all this stuff about why I can't be on Instagram anymore. Sad, because I love Instagram.
Alex, this would hint at mixed success. But is the ban maybe targeted at younger children not yet addicted, rather than the teenagers who are already hooked on it, who are going to find a way around the system and carry on using it?
Yeah, I think so, because someone that's 15 and a half and has been using this stuff for years, and much of their social network is on there. I mean, it's not difficult to find a way around bans like this. On a lot of social media, you get to declare your age. So a lot of young teenagers I know have accounts that show them as over 16 anyway. And that's been going on for years. Like I remember my niece started an account before she was old enough to have an Instagram account. Maybe actually it's not about preventing those who are about to be able to use it anyway, but about sheltering at least a section into not using it, not getting into it at all for a few years. I saw a really, really interesting piece on Sky News, I think, by Roland Manthorpe. He collated all the data that we have about this, the actual evidence. And what's really interesting about it is that there is no link between worsening mental health in young cohorts and social media use. If you look at the actual linkage, it's not there. It's something I think that a lot of us feel instinctively, but it could be to do with a whole host of stuff that has been changing recently. Cambridge did a study that took in 1 million children. Like, this is not a small sample. They tested this thoroughly, looking at 1 million children's use and mental health. And to give you an idea, when you're talking about linkage, like the maximum is 1. So if you looked at, for instance, the link between, let's say, height and weight, you would find it's about 0.8. Like if you are taller, you are very, very likely to be heavier. And when you look at linkage between social media use and time spent on social media and, let's say, depression or anxiety, it's below 0.1. So it really is a very tenuous link. What I thought was a better argument for it, there is research that shows that, but there is a link between social media making it worse. Let's say a 14-year-old that is already feeling bad or a bit depressed or anxious is more likely to go online and look for things and doom scroll.
My initial reaction to the story was one of envy. Like, oh, I want it to be banned. I don't want to be able to do it. Take it away from it. Turn off the fucking internet. I am done. I am, as we know, been advocating for people to pick up a paper, to read books, to physically integrate with the world that they're in. I would dearly love us all to have much less time on it. And I agree with you that I don't think it does affect my mental health too negatively. I think a lot of other things do. And when I'm feeling down, I will want to retreat and not, do enough socializing, and therefore I'll sort of seek some solace in my phone
and not find it, basically.
I've got more control there over whether I interact or not. What I find really interesting is that it's not being extended to WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger. And then I think, well, it's probably not going to help with the bullying aspect, because as a teenage girl, I was desperately badly bullied at school. And my saving grace was that when I got home and closed the front door, I had a haven and they couldn't get me there. We didn't even have mobile phones. They would literally have had to have rung my landline and got past my mum and dad to carry on bullying me after school. And that the privilege that I now recognize that children today don't have, which is it does not end when you leave school and get into your mum and dad's car or the school bus or through the front door at home. The bullies are finding ways to contact you. So I don't think this ban is going to do much to dampen that. And I do think it's got to go hand in hand with much more education about internet literacy and giving children the tools to understand how these things can affect you, how you should use them, etc. And I also tend to think that anything that gets banned becomes more desirable. Prohibition generally doesn't work. And we have also learned that. So I think to do it without the commensurate education around it, which I'm sure they are also doing, it's unlikely to work. But I think it's a wonderful experiment.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that Australia are doing it so that we can learn from it and do it if we think it's going to work and avoid it if it doesn't.
There are things that we ban below a certain age for safety reasons. We don't allow people below a certain age to drive. And so I think it does matter. It does matter what signal the state gives, basically, regardless of whether people might find ways of circumventing the rules.
Yeah, no, but in terms of the rules, there's just a quick point about how they're doing it in Australia, in that the tech companies are the ones enforcing it themselves, which seems to me to be problematic, to say the least. As someone who used to work for a gambling company who made all the right noises about self-regulation, but were also very keen to take as much money off people as possible. They're being pulled in two very different directions at the same time. But also, we're behind on this in terms of reacting to social media and deciding whether or not to ban it. A conversation that probably should have been had 10 years ago was this new thing called the attachment economy, which has moved on from the addiction economy with companies placing adverts next to videos of cats and encouraging them to use social media. And now the attachment economy, where people are developing relationships with AI machines and being directed to spend as much time talking to your chat GPT or your Grok as possible, as the new thing that's happening to our minds that we've not previously experienced before.
It's true, Henry. My husband, he will kill me for saying this, but he will jokingly, if I ask him a question that he doesn't know the answer to, he'll go, I'm just going to go and ask my best friend. And then he'll go into ChatGPT, like my new best friend. It's what he colloquially calls it.
You did some work recently through BFB, Naomi, on how the TikTok algorithm basically serves up far-right stuff, especially to young men. So it makes assumptions about the sort of thing you're going to like, depending on the very scant information that you put in. Do we know a lot about how teens consume content, and what is it doing to their politics?
We're certainly seeing a slight skew in the gender on the influence of TikTok and other platforms with very young people, that the girls are tending to like and engage with the more left-wing content, and boys more receptive to the right and far-right content. It is not universal, and of course there are also girls being sucked in to the far-right bubble, and some men really being very eulogizing about Zach Polanski. I think that data, though, is really the kind of the older teen. And I don't know how much has been done on the younger, below 16. I'm not familiar with the data. I'm sure somebody's done that work. I'm not familiar with it. But what we do know is that, as you say, the algorithm is making an assumption based on the location of where somebody signed up, the age profile of who signed up, and the gender of who signed up, and then serves them very rapidly content it thinks will hook them in and keep them there and keep them engaging. And I hope that what part of this experiment will do is to maybe retrain that algorithm a bit, so that when a new person comes onto the platform, once they're legally eligible to, that maybe that link will have been broken and they won't immediately be served, oh yes, you're 16 and a man living in a rural environment, you're probably an incel. Here, have this lovely, Jordan Peterson video. We'll see. And I think I do think it's an interesting experiment for a country as big as Australia.
What I was going to lead to is, rather than hooking it in the way that Anthony Albanese did, in quite an old-fashioned patronizing thing that we've been hearing really for 100 years, that young people today, they should go out and play with a stick.
Go and get some fresh air.
Because that's better for you. Are there actually more compelling reasons to take young teens off those platforms? For safety. They are unregulated and quite dangerous places in terms of sexual predators, in terms of radicalization. Shouldn't that be the forefront of the reason?
One of the prompts for the Australian ban was some really heart-wrenching cyberbullying cases from 2024 of 12-year-old girls. That seems to be the direction it's come from. There's poison out there. There's the normalization of extreme content on there and the grave things this world can do to you. We need to protect our children from, like you protect your children from anything else.
Not to press you further in this, but if you and your wife spent a lot of time on your phones, isn't that the most important element? Isn't a ban a sort of abrogation? You're the people that will teach your kids moderation in their use and how to navigate these spaces. If someone 12 years old goes into TikTok for the very first time, and someone 16 years old goes into TikTok for the very first time, aren't they equally clueless about TikTok? Shouldn't we be teaching kids how to navigate these spaces rather than saying, you can't use it until you're 16, and then at 16 you will have magically developed the skills and judgment to navigate this kind of place?
Firstly, yes, we should use our phones less. What your children see their parents doing is the main thing that prompts them in how they behave. But I think I don't have a problem with social media being banned until 16. I think that you don't have that much to learn once you arrive on the TikTok platform. And if you're carrying a bit more maturity and you've understood a few more of the things that your parents might have tried to explain to you by the time you get there, it might make the transition there a lot easier. I think one thing I would say is that Anthony Albanese clip, if I was a 15-year-old and I heard that, it would make me want to get onto social media against all the odds. I mean, nothing would stop me.
Quiet riot.
Now, from animals doing a better job than humans to people pulling off absurdly clever stunts to little victories that make you go, well, at least this isn't a disaster. We've got the stories that make you laugh and maybe even feel like the world isn't completely hopeless. It's time for Grin and Share It.
Good news is welcome to me. Bad news is hell come to me. Good news. I want good news.
Naomi, what have you got for us this week?
Alex, it's not often you're going to hear me spreading a good news story about the Pope. But today I am. And no, it's not about the current Pope, who has given Trump a bop on the nose as we record on Wednesday for everything he wrote slagging off Europe. It's about the last guy, Francis. Remember him? And he was pretty good on Palestine. And he frequently spoke about the war in Gaza. At the beginning of the year, he called the humanitarian situation there shameful. He called for the release of the hostages taken captive by Hamas. He met their relatives, condemned the attack on Israel that ignited the whole war. And he spoke on the phone every night to Gaza's Christian community while he was alive during the war. So what, I hear you ask, are you doing talking about him now? Well, we've now learned that one of his final acts before he died was to give permission for his Pope-mobile. Do you remember that? The converted Mitsubishi truck he used to go around Bethlehem in?
I want one so much.
To be turned into a mobile clinic for the children of Gaza. And the Pope-mobile can now treat children in a fully functioning little clinic at the back of the truck. And it's hopefully making its way to Gaza imminently to begin doing the Lord's work there. And so, Alex, there we have it. Probably the first and last nice thing you're going to hear me say about the Holy See.
It creates a very interesting diplomatic knot for Netanyahu, whether to let it in or not, doesn't it? Oh, that's very, very interesting and a very good Grin and Share It. Thanks, Naomi. And
that got me thinking, what's going to be my last thing? What's my Nissan going to get put to good use for once I'm not here?
We'll drop details of the story in the show notes so that you can not just grin, but also share the story. And that's the end of this week's show. As ever, a huge quiet riot diolch to Henry Morris. Thank you, Henry.
Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Listeners, remember, you can follow Henry on Blue Sky and support his work by subscribing to his Substack, and his books are in our bookshop. While you're in our show notes, don't forget to take the actions we mentioned, back us on coffee, and leave a little review.
We have a bonus episode coming out for you this week. It should be out tomorrow if you're listening on Thursday. It should drop Friday morning, featuring the newly elected president of the Liberal Democrats, Josh Babarinde MP. And don't forget to check out Arthur's latest Behind the Line episode that dropped earlier this week too.
We will be back at the weekend with our Sunday school edition. So until then, stay warm, stay dry, especially you, Henry, and stay rioting quietly. We love you lots and lots. Bye.
Bye.
Quiet Riot is an audio production by Cooler Heads with Naomi Smith and Alex Andreou. Produced by Kenny Campbell. Music by Mariana Sangeeta. Artwork by Simone Canelu. And edited by me, Alex Reese.
Quiet Riot.
A plus 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 plus.
And everybody is tired. All of the Ukrainians I know are that they've just kind of had enough. It's been remorseless. We've seen a massive uptick in bombing by Russia of Ukrainian cities over the New Year period, Kiev, Kharkiv, Zaporizhia, Dnipro, and so on.
I'm Arthur Snell. I spent 2 decades as a British diplomat in places like Iraq, Afghanistan and Yemen. I ran the International Prevent programme for a while, and now I'm the host of the Behind the Lines podcast, where we get the leading experts on global issues, from Argentina to Zimbabwe, from places you hear a lot about like Ukraine and the Middle East, to things that we barely hear mentioned like Myanmar. My guests are informed, insightful and invaluable guides to what's happening in this crazy world.
Yeah, hi, I'm Christopher Steele.
I'm James Barr. I'm Gaia Vince.
It's very, very clear that the amount of food being distributed from these centres is not enough.
I'm Dr. Emma Bryan.
I'm Dan Kazita.
It's like a dog that chases a bus, you know, and then one day it catches the bus, it just runs headlong into that. What the hell do we do now? The sound of a dog actually catching up with a bus.
What we need to be talking about is fascism and how to challenge fascist ideas.
My name's Helena von Bismarck.
So I'm Zoe Gardner.
It's left Xi Jinping with a lifetime conviction that chaos is to be avoided at all costs.
I'm Emily Thornberry. I'm the Labour MP for Islington South and Finsbury, and I am now the chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee.
I'm Romy Kukratsky. I'm the managing editor of the New Voice of Ukraine.
I don't think the West have any wish for Ukraine to win, because Ukrainian win means a collapse of Russia. What they want to bring balance back.
I say to my students, I think this is a moment very similar to when I was a student. The Cold War was ending, the Berlin Wall was falling, and it seemed like a moment of immense opportunity, but it was also a moment in which everything was changing quite dramatically.
Behind the Lines is your essential guide to the international scene. Find it wherever you get your podcasts.